Hey everyone, welcome back to Breakthrough Innovation. With us today is Jason Morris, a serial entrepreneur, seasoned business advisor, and former portfolio CEO with deep expertise in startups, acquisitions, exits, and scaling business for rapid growth. The fun part about this is I think he started it all at the age of 10, which is mind-blowing. So launching the first business at age 10 and spending 12 years in private equity, leading turnarounds and driving acquisitions, Jason's developed a playbook for transforming struggling businesses into thriving, sellable enterprises. He's an expert in business operations, mergers and acquisitions, financial management, and leadership development. But at the heart of it all, he's really just passionate about helping and inspiring others to succeed. So today we're going to dive into what it takes to scale a business quickly, lessons learned from failures, and how entrepreneurs can navigate the challenges of growth, exit strategies, and leadership. So if you're a founder, investor, or executive looking for some actionable insights, you're in the right place. Jason, we're really excited to dive in. We want to talk about the starting at age 10. We want to talk about the fact that you're a twin, which I'm sure was just going to be fun. But all in all, we're just thrilled to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate that intro. It really sounds way better than how I feel after all that experience. So thanks for that.
Well, our goal is to make sure our guests look good and we can kind of elevate what they're doing and shine a spotlight on it. So sounds like we succeeded in this instance.
Nailed it.
I do think to jump in, we have to start at that first business at age 10. Like that, I don't know that I've ever met someone who started that early. You hear stories about like Warren Buffett and some people like that, but I'm curious, what drove you to become an entrepreneur so early and what impact has that had on your journey since then?
I think that's a great question. I'm fairly certain that most people follow their parents. They follow what they see and what they grow up in. It's kind of the environment that their culture that's around them. And my dad has always been an entrepreneur. I remember watching him go and try to work for somebody else. And he hated being, not like answering to anybody else, but just the whole concept as an entrepreneurial focus is I can do this better.
Yeah.
We're not demeaning anybody. There's just a better way to do it, and I want the freedom to do it. So I watched him struggle, and my twin brother and I we started our own little landscape thing at 10. I remember pushing the lawnmower down the sidewalk while Dave sat on it with holding the blower and the line trimmer, and I would push him there, and he would push me back home.
Vision of labor. I love it.
Yeah, I remember that vividly.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, so how has that shaped your views later in life?
Yeah, I mean, as far as just starting a business.
Yeah, I think, and maybe even that family background.
So both my parents are now, they've continued to be entrepreneurs. My parents had 9 children. And so my mom obviously had to delay her career and her aspirations until after the youngest one was old enough. And I happened to be the second oldest. So I watched my mom intentionally pause while she sacrificed everything for children. But now they're both entrepreneurs. My mom's a marriage and family therapist, and my dad continues to do landscaping. And I guess for me, it's just, it's the fact that you've got to have grit and you've got to have persistence. And really, it's kind of like wrestling. There's no one else to lean on. The buck stops with you. And my parents have been great examples to me of that, the ability to just dig deep, have that grit to stick with something until it works and finding a way through it. I was at a retreat last week. Today's Tuesday. I was at a retreat last week, and we were talking with founders and business owners, and the common phrase was just figure it out. And an entrepreneurial mindset is just figure it out. Open your Excel spreadsheet and figure it out. So I learned that from my parents at a super young age.
So, Jason, you and I have had a longer relationship than just right now, which is not the same with most of our guests. So I know from talking to you before that you have a huge focus on leadership and culture. And so I think it'd be interesting from what you said about some of that individual perspective. Well, how do you translate that into the whole company? How do you make sure that the company that you're leading also has that culture of accountability and innovation and that entrepreneurial spirit?
Everybody that runs a business or has started a business and begins to hire a team wants buy-in. They want everybody to think like they do. And it's probably the hardest thing to do. You can raise money. I won't say that's easy, but raising money is easier than getting buy-in from all of your people. That's for sure. But I think that, so I've been told that I come by it honestly. So I can't claim that I've studied this. I can't claim that I've, went off to a mountain for a year and in silence and figured out the secret. But I really just first want to know what makes people tick. And I've made it a point in the experiences that I've had in the past. I've taken over several companies under a private equity group as a CEO. And I walk in day one, they've been in the business 10, 12 years, and you were just born. And you're now their boss. And it is hard to earn trust and respect. And so you really only have the intellectual relationship to lean on in the beginning. And so you've got to help people understand who you are. And I want to know who they are. What makes you tick? What are your goals? Is this a stepping stone? Is this a pivotal moment for you? What's your career? Where are you headed? And then we dive deep into that, because if I can make them successful while working for me, we both win. I yield a great result in production and productivity, and they yield their result of getting to where they want to be. And so I think from an accountability and a buy-in standpoint, you start with what makes them tick, and you try to figure out if there's a collaboration there. But I'm a huge fan of KPIs. I'm a huge fan of the psychology behind reporting data on a daily basis, which honestly sounds daunting. If you do it right, it should only take them 5 minutes. But the psychological shift that occurs when you have to account for what you did today, it yields X on a daily basis, which, you look at that over a month, you can control things a little bit tighter. Not micromanage. It's psychology. They do it themselves. So I hope that was the right lane, Preston.
There's not a right or wrong question. There's a response. That was a great response. And one that, resonates really well with JL and myself. That's a lot of our focus, is how do we drive that accountability? How do you help individuals in the transformation have accountability of the transformation? I think we see way too often that people try making change happen to employees or even customers, instead of saying, we're going to do this with you. You have to be on board. You have to participate.
The honest and heartbreaking part is that not many respond in a positive way. There's very few that actually buy in and trust you and end up achieving their goals through you. And I'm not going to claim that I got them there by any stretch. It was a team effort, right? We did it together, and they did the work. And I loved how you mentioned customer. I think that that's a missed opportunity in business. We spend so much time trying to manage our teams that we don't reach out to our customers and ask them the same questions. What are your goals and where are you headed? How can I help you win? And again, from a psychology standpoint, and I promise I have not done any education in psychology, but I just come by it naturally. Like, I want you to win, because if you win, we win. So right. Great point, Preston.
And I think there's this idea of just understanding what winning looks like. So many people assume they do, and then there's no alignment. And if you don't really have an aligned vision of what winning is, it's really hard to work in a cohesive, collaborative way to get there.
Yeah. I think every scenario I've been in, even at the age of 10, when we were starting our little landscape thing, we had kind of the end goal in mind. We knew what we wanted to get to. Even if that was going to change along the way, that's fine. We had the idea. You buy a business, and what I've done in the last 12 years, you buy a business knowing I'm buying it at a 2.5 multiple. EBITDA is pretty good. I want to triple EBITDA, and I want to sell it for a 6 multiple. And that's quickly happens in everybody's mind. Well, that's the end goal, right? That's the vision. That's the objective. And then you work backwards to get everybody to get in line. And when that happens, the book 10X is easier than 2X, it occurs because everybody is rowing the same way and everybody is lifting, and hey, there it is. Everybody's rowing the same direction instead of you feeling like you're pulling everybody along. So yeah, collaboration occurs.
No, I love it. And I think the other part of it is when you know what success looks like, you also know what failure looks like. And you can adapt to that and learn from that as well. And I think you mentioned that you see failure as part of success. Do you have a good example?
Well, I have lots and lots of examples. I'm 41, and I think most of my adult life, I've always felt like people that have succeeded never failed. I've got a brother-in-law. It feels like everything he touches turns to gold, and I know there's failure in there, and that in front of my teams. And again, I've managed thousands of people, and it sounds better than it really is, but the reason I say thousands is because they're all different. They're all different backgrounds, different cultures. And what you have to figure out is helping them get comfortable and not afraid to fail. If you're not failing, you're not pushing, you're not trying. If you're in the batter's box and you're not swinging, you failed, and you failed miserably because you didn't even try. And so I've embraced this culture that I want you to fail. And I think it was Jocko Willink that said, you failed, good. You missed your target, good. Like, it didn't work out,
Yep.
good. Because
Extreme ownership.
now we can identify what didn't work and why it didn't work and build upon that to get to the success. And guess what? When you succeed, it doesn't feel like failure anymore. It feels like a lesson learned. And I can think of one example I missed wildly. I remember I was managing an asphalt maintenance business, and I was transitioning from an asphalt maintenance business to a discount grocery business in Portland, Oregon. And I remember that I had wildly screwed something up in our asphalt company. And just out of protection of our time, I won't dive into why. Plus, I don't really want to expose what I did, but understanding why I screwed up and facing it, calling my board and explaining what occurred as I was driving to Oregon, thinking the whole way, these guys think I'm going to go screw this company up now, right? It actually led to massive transformation in Portland. We turned a company around in 8 months that had all but lost $1 million in EBITDA.
Mm.
It was the lesson learned of detail. It was the lesson learned of what we're looking at and why we're measuring it and who is responsible and accountable for it that transformed that next success immediately. And honestly, it erased it. And I saw my old, he was my boss. I saw him last week and we laughed about it. So I'm glad that failure really was a stepping stone.
Well, I like that kind of story of, let's call it redemption, for lack of a better thing. Like, failure you don't learn from becomes a regret, I think, is maybe the best way to look at it. Failure that you grow from becomes a founding stone, right? A foundation stone, or I don't know what the right metaphor is there, but something that builds you up.
Great word.
Knowing that we are getting close to the end of time here, not all time, just for the episode, I'm curious, given the experience, the failures, the successes, the starting businesses at 10, and like everything you've been through, what is the one thing that someone who's looking at starting or scaling a business today needs to know and needs to consider?
Great question. And I think that all business owners are looking to justify and even excuse poor behavior. My industry's different. This one's unique. No one would really understand what I'm going through. There's complexities or there's variables that don't relate. And excuse me, I get it and I hear it and I've even said it. But I have personally been in over 10 different industries managing in a managerial role. I've taken on the CEO role for a private equity firm in 4 different segments that had no synergy: plumbing, supply, distribution, asphalt maintenance, discount grocery, non-emergency transportation. There's no synergies there. There's no similarities other than basic principles of business. And I think that what I would encourage anybody at the age of 10 or at the age of 85 or 90, if you want to get into business or you want to scale your business, you have to know what you're measuring and you have to commit to measuring it every day. I don't want you to spend an hour in front of a computer at 7 p.m. when you should be with your family measuring data. No. You have to find 7 or 8, maybe 10 at the most, driving indicators, the KPIs, and you have to find a way to measure those daily so that you can make an adjustment tomorrow. I can't stand it when a bookkeeper comes into me and says, I want to go over last month's financial statement with you. And I'm like, last month is too late. I don't want to lose 10 grand in a month. I want to lose $50 today and I want to double not double the loss. I want to double my money back tomorrow because we fixed it today. I recognize that you can get into the weeds. You have to be super careful not to, which is why I said it's important to know what you're measuring. Make 7 to 10 data points and measure those on a daily basis. And you have to commit to it. You have to hold yourself and your top people accountable to that, or it won't work. You will continue to justify and excuse away why you'll blame everybody else as to why it's not working, but it just comes down to not knowing your numbers.
Right. No, I love that. I think there's a certain level of simplicity and clarity in that, and just knowing these are the things that matter. These are the levers we have to pull. And if you can identify those things, it's really empowering.
And if I could say one more thing.
Absolutely.
AI is making this stupid easy. There is no excuse right now. And I don't mean to be brash, but people have been brash and have helped me learn that, right? They've looked me in the eye and say, stop complaining and stop driving excuses. AI is super helpful right now. And I'm not even an expert in innovation, but I'm becoming one, and I'm helping my children understand what it is because it's their future. So AI can and they've got all these systems in place to just give you the data. It'll do it automatically. So just commit to it.
Yeah.
Just one point to call out there is the importance of simplicity. You're describing not a complex system for capturing data and recording data. It's like, find something simple that you can measure that actually makes a difference.
I totally agree. Simplicity we complicate it ourselves. We're just human. Knock it off. Make it simple.
So Jason, we do need to wrap up. If anyone's looking to connect with you, collaborate, work with you, what's the best way to get in touch?
LinkedIn's probably the best way to tag me. I think it's under Jason Morris. I think the end of my tag is JMO, JMO. But that's probably the best way to reach me is LinkedIn.
Awesome. Well, Jason, thank you so much for being here. I've enjoyed this conversation. I enjoyed learning you were an identical twin. You're like the second one I've ever met, which is fun. And for everyone else who's been making it all the way to the end of the episode with us as well, hopefully this brought you value. Hopefully you're already clicking like and leaving a review for us on whatever platform you're listening from. The next step is to find some people who can benefit from Jason's experience starting from the age of 10 in starting businesses, scaling businesses, and turning them around. Share this episode with them, introduce them to Jason, and let them benefit from his knowledge. And then go back and take a moment, find an actionable insight from today, apply it, and then let us know how it goes, because we'd love to hear about your progress. So Jason, thank you again. And for everyone else, thank you as well. And we'll see you all next time on Breakthrough Innovation.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Jason.